what we do here is go back.
Hello, my lovely, beautiful ninjas. Thank you so much for tuning in again. So, of course, this is going to be part 2 of our Bible study. So, we are currently studying chapter Luke verses... I apologize. I'm so sorry. We are currently studying Luke chapter 22, verse 41 through 46. So, in part 1, we talked about verses 41 and 42. If you guys have not checked out that video, make sure that you click the link up here somewhere and just pause this video and go back and watch that before you watch this one, just so everything can tie in. But if you don't want to, you could just watch this one. It's up to you. The decision is yours. So, in today's video, we are going to be talking about verses 43 and 44. So we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it. If you have your Bible, go ahead and pick it up. If not, I will make sure to leave the actual scripture across my face as I'm reading. So, okay, so verses 43. Where is verse 43? I don't have my glasses on. Jesus. I'm sorry, y'all. My eyes are just not the best. So 41 says, "And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw and knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me, yet not my will, but always yours be done. Now an angel appeared to him from heaven, strengthening him, and being in agony, he prayed more intently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down on the ground." I'm just gonna stop there. Okay. What I found interesting about this is just the fact that in verse 42, he basically made a request known to God. He said, you know, God, can you, if you're willing to take this away from me, please do it. But of course, let your will be done. So because I'm operating by faith, I know that your will is much better than my request. So please help me out with this. But if not, it is what it is. Pretty much that's how I get it. So I think that it's interesting because verse 43, it basically says that an angel appeared to him to strengthen him. So I think that verse 43, to me, the way that I take it is as if it shows that basically, obviously God heard him and God was not leaving him, because he basically got an immediate answer. And I feel like the answer kind of comes and it symbolizes different things. So the first thing to me that it symbolizes, the angel appearing, symbolizes that obviously it's a sign. So it's a sign that God heard his request. God is listening to him and doesn't plan on leaving him, you know, alone, or leaving him to, I guess, go through this alone. So that's the first thing that it symbolizes to me. So it's a sign that God hears us, God hears our requests, he hears our questions, he hears our prayers, and he's there with us. He's never going to leave us alone. The second thing that it symbolizes for me, the angel appearing, is that it's an immediate answer, pretty much. So it basically answers, I don't know how to say this. So basically in verse 42, he says, if you're willing to remove this, please do it. But let your will be done. And then the angel appearing to strengthen him, to me, is an answer that this is my will. This is kind of like God saying, no, this is my will. I understand your request, but request denied. This is my will. And then the third thing is that it symbolizes, it comes as a gift, because now he's strengthened. So he's strengthened by God to endure the task that he knows will inevitably come. So it's like you get the answer that you're looking for. I mean, well, you get the answer in general. It tells you it's an answer that you don't really want to hear, but at the same time you're strengthened to endure what you know is to come, pretty much. So I feel like verse 43 just kind of tells me and tells us that God hears us, God is with us, even if we don't think that he's listening. He is listening to us, but he knows more. And like I said as well in the first video, that God has gone further into our future than we have. So even though we think that our request is the best answer or the best solution to our problems, God knows what the result of giving us what we're asking for will be, as well as he knows what the result of giving or of basically his will be for our lives. So he knows more. So stop trying to play God. You know, and it's tough to do, honestly, especially if you're in the middle of like a hard circumstance or something like that. I don't know, I just feel like this kind of shows you that really our faith will be tested. And I think that if we are not strengthened in our faith, if we are not if we don't kind of like continue to pour into our spiritual beings, if we don't continue to pour into our faith, then we will kind of fall, you know, flat on our faces, you know. And I think that the more, it's better for you to have to endure something with God by your side than to take a completely different route without God, because then you expose yourself to things that are basically out of, not necessarily out of God's protection, because obviously God is everywhere, but I feel like it's better for you to align yourself with God's will for your life, because he's been there. He knows it's the better route for you, and his protection and his leading and his guidance and his strength is there. And although we can't see it, but because of the fact that we operate from the outside in, we want to be able to see it. We want to be able to understand it before we actually kind of like just trust it. And it's horrible to say, but I think that this kind of shows us that we need to stop operating from, you know, our flesh. We need to start operating by spirit, because when we operate by spirit, we're able to, like I said, just accept God's strength in us. We'll be able to kind of detect that this is God, you know, that's his will for our lives, and we'll be able to have, I guess, better peace and understanding about it, if that makes sense. So verse 43 to me is a tough one, just because I feel like it shows you that God is listening to you. It shows you that he will never leave you. It also shows you that he is willing to answer you and give you your answers, but sometimes it may not necessarily be what you want to hear. And then also it shows you that even if it is something that you don't want to hear, that he's going to be there every step of the way to strengthen you to endure or to overcome whatever the task is. So just be strengthened by that, and knowing that God hears you, that he's there for you, and that he will continue to strengthen you and walk with you along the way. So that's pretty much what verse 43 tells me. And then verse 44 says, and being in agony, he prayed more intently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down on the ground. So kind of like verse 43, right? Okay, yeah. So kind of like verse 43, it basically shows that kind of like the reaction that we display and express when we get an answer that we don't want to hear, pretty much, you know. So you're distressed, you are in agony, you are afraid, you are anxious, you are worried, you're expressing these emotions because you know that you can't bypass, or you can't go around or avoid this task that is inevitably, you know, there to come and to strengthen you. So it says that he prayed more intently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down on the ground. So I think that the part where it says that he prayed more intently, I feel like, again, this is a command, is that you have to get to a place to continue to stay strengthened in your faith. You have to get to a place where it's like you're desperate for this relationship. You are desperate for, you know, just the intimacy between you and God. You are desperate to have it. And you have to be very intentional about what you're praying, how much time you're spending in prayer. You know, you have to be very intentional about it. And so I feel like just it's saying that he prayed more intently, it's kind of like we get the answers that we don't want. So it's like you're trying to kind of like, I guess, pray yourself back to, I don't know how to say this for it to make sense. God help me. I think that because of the fact that we think that we're God, a lot of times we think that the plans that we make are definite. So, you know, you have to remember that you're not God, and so that you can't really see into the future. So as much as you can make plans for the next 20 minutes or the next 20 days or the next 20 years of your life, you have to remember that we are still walking in God's will for our lives. So we are still living through God's will. So of course we can make decisions to get out of alignment from that. But at the same time, you have to remember that because of the fact that we are not the source, we are a part of the source, we are a result of the source's will. But because we're just a part of it and we are not the source, we have to be very intentional about the amount of time that we spend with God, and just about spending time with God anyways in the first place. So just remember that your faith will always be tested, but that God is with you to strengthen you when your faith fails. So even though verse 44 says, okay, so the part where it says his sweat became like drops of blood falling down on the ground, I feel like just, it's like if you picture it, you know, you're basically praying, you ask for something, you get a sign that the request has been denied, and you are basically praying and kind of like pleading like, oh my goodness, this is really about to happen, this is about to go down. And you see drops of, you know, your sweat basically turn like drops of blood. So it's kind of like a sign that, look, this is happening. Like, there's no way to get out of this. Don't even plead anymore. There's no reason to plead because this is happening. Things have fallen aligned and this is what's about to happen. And a lot of times it's hard for us, and I'm sorry, I'm recording the rest of this on my phone because I rebuke it. The devil is a lie. The devil has been messing with my camera, not trying to allow me to record this, but I would rather it be unprofessional than for me to not get this message out. And so it is what it is. If the quality sucks, I'm sorry. I do not have an iPhone. I am not paying $800 for a phone. Not having it. But that's besides the point. So if you imagine, you know, you're sweating pretty much and it says drops of blood. I mean, your sweat turns like drops of blood, and it's kind of like, okay, this is really about to happen. You can't get around it. You can't pray your way out of it. You can't convince anybody to, you know, take your place or anything like that. I feel like that's the part where it's kind of like you're in over your head, and it's like you have to trust at this point in time. You can't get out of it. You have to just trust. And it's harder. I think it's much easier for you to be put in that place knowing that you have been filling up, you know, your spiritual, I guess, cup, I guess, if that makes sense. It's easier for you to go through that and to endure that and to kind of like walk in it, you know, knowing what's about to happen, just to walk towards where you know that it's going to end up. When you've been filling up your cup, when you've been operating in your spirit, when you've been kind of like, you know, intentional about the time that you spend with God, it's easier for you to endure something like that. It's still difficult, but it's easier for you to endure something like that when you've been doing, you know, like been spending time in your spiritual being and spending time with the source, than for you to not have been spending time with the source and just be over your head, like in over your head like that. So I think that, again, all of this is kind of like a command to us to let us know that we have to be willing to, again, understand that our faith will be tested. So again, our faith will be tested, but at the end of the day, if you have God with you, you'll be strengthened to endure whatever it is that is in front of you at this time. So just remember that you just have to stay encouraged, and you have to just be very intentional about the amount of time that you spend. So again, all of this is just a command to us to let us know that we have all the tools that we need to endure anything that life throws at us. And that if we are intentional about, you know, doing the spiritual work and just spending time with the source and just basically filling, you know, just making sure that we spend time and we are intentional about spending time with the source, I think that in that you'll always find the strength that you need. You'll always find the guidance that you need. You'll always find the peace to endure and to kind of walk and take the steps towards, you know, maybe something that may be devastating or a devastating circumstance in your life. And just remembering that God is not just with you before the circumstance or after the circumstance. He's with you in the midst of it. And that's the time that you have to be even more, you know, intentional about praying and, you know, just removing yourself from all other distractions so that you are able to just stay connected with the source, so that you are able to overcome that. So, and just allow that to be a testimony to share with other people as well, so that they are also encouraged in their walk. So hopefully this all makes sense. I'm so sorry about this end of this video, but it is what it is. We have to do what we have to do at this point in time. But hopefully this all makes sense. Hopefully it all ties in and it helps to change your perspective on these, the passage and these verses, and that it's able to resonate and help to encourage and to uplift you if you are currently in a, it's horrible or a circumstance that you may not necessarily prefer. Just know that God is with you, and that you just have to make sure that you stay strengthened in your faith, and that faith doesn't mean that you will never, doubt, or you will never feel or express fear or anxiety or worry. That's not what faith is. Faith is basically just putting a stake in the ground that even though I am scared, even though I am worried, even though I am feeling anxious, I still believe that my God will be there with me along the way, and that his will is much better than my request and my solution to this problem. So just remain faithful, remain prayed up, and I am definitely praying for you as well. And God is definitely there with you. So that's all you need. So thank you again so much for tuning in. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and also make sure that you share this video with whoever that may need it. So thank you again. Be safe, stay blessed, and remember to always treat yourself. Peace out.